non-technical persons and domain experts can do their analysis and workflow. And today's speaker, Rishabh, is a great example for that. He's a domain expert in medical domain, and he is able to make some really good insights on his use case. So we'll be seeing that. So coming to it, we can use TurnAI in order to securely connect to any data source, be it MCP, ERPs, databases, data warehouse, data lakes, or whatever it is. So it supports any kind of databases like MySQL, Postgres, or anything. And also we can upload any kinds of files or of any format. For example, images, CSVs, it supports anything. So no matter where the data is spread out, we can happily connect everything into Turno
Yeah.
and make all the
Okay,
analysis.
the screen got unshared. Can you please share again?
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Just
And if anybody has any questions regarding Turno, how it works or anything, you can ask in the chat or you can raise the hand and speak your question.
is it visible now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So to ensure enterprise grade security within Turno AI, we have SQL Shield. So this is a special layer within Turno AI because it only gives the read only access, and it does the schema only analysis. It does encrypted connections and the virtual environment executions, and it does all it isolated SOC2 compliant infrastructure so that your data never leaves your premises. So basically, we will have this fear that what if my private data is entering the LLMs or it is entering the internet? So we don't need to really uh, have a fear of that because that is how we are securely connecting our data sources to Turno. So it is only the schema analysis that we'll be doing. So there is no need for us to scare that I will be losing my data or I'll be compromising on the privacy. And if we want more privacy, we can install Turno on our cloud. So the data remains within our network and it is governed by our own IAM rules and firewall and compliance policies. So there is no data movement to external SaaS systems or third party servers because it is just sitting on our own cloud. Or another option is the desktop app option, which we can download and run it locally within our desktop. So that data stays on our local machine, be it Mac or Windows. And there is no need for syncing the cloud or no accidental data exposure. So basically, Turno is coming in three forms. The SaaS or web app form is the first one. The second one is the AMI, which we can download it on our cloud server, and the third one is using it locally on our machine. And we can also do various kinds of analysis using Turno. We can perform the full analytics workflow, be it exploratory data analysis, advanced machine learning model, real-time processing, and automated report generation. So the entire workflow will be supported by Turno. You just need to connect your data source and be ready with your strategies to implement in order to get your analysis. Now let us see how Turno works. So when a user uploads files or user questions to Turno, it interacts with the data or systems using the code and which is in Python and SQL primarily. And internally, it has the knowledge and security layer, and it also has the data sources layer, which is connected to the MCPs, ERPs, or databases, just like we discussed earlier. So once the user has given a question, all the interactions internally happen, and Turno agent generates the code and it executes and compute comes up with the relevant answer, and the results are given back to the Turno agent, and the agent is here to answer to the user in the desired format.
Uh,
So
yeah, Vagdevi. So there are multiple questions. So I think we should take the questions now. Okay. So there is a question like, this is like ChatGPT. No. So there are lots of difference between Turno and ChatGPT. You cannot directly connect your database to ChatGPT, and it cannot do a complex analysis on that. Turno can do very complex analysis on your database, whether it is involves multiple sources. If you have your data in a MySQL database, other some data is in Google Analytics, or it is in Databricks like data warehouses. It can do analysis using all of them. Okay, and it can yeah, you can run those the code and the SQL in a secure environment. Okay, so it is different from the ChatGPT. And is it something similar to RAG? As sensitive data remains secure 100%. No, RAG is like just one component of Turno AI, where we stored some semantic information there so that we can answer the queries better. But it is just one component of Turno AI. So Turno AI can do a lot more than what RAG can do. What are the cost of using Turno AI? So we provide some credits when you sign up for free so that you can try it out. And it is pay as you go. So if you like to use more and if you want to try things out, you can check the pricing on the web page. We will paste the link here. So there is a free trial available, and the cost is basically just for the LLM. So we are not charging a lot for that. Just we are covering the LLM cost that you will incur while you are querying something. Is it like local Olama? Which LLM does it use? So no, not it is not like local Olama, but it uses LLM. So you can connect different types of LLM to Turno and use it. How to train this? So Turno AI learns on its own. So if you interact with it, it will learn from your interactions, and in future, it will answer your queries better. What the product can do? Is it only for analyst? No, anybody can use the Turno AI because everybody has some their data in some format, like either the CSV files, PDF files, or databases, or anything. Your data can be anywhere. So Turno AI can do those complex analysis, and so anybody can use this, whether it is student, data analysis analyst, or a marketing person, or a data scientist also. Okay, it can serve as a very powerful tool for data scientists so that they can try multiple things at the same time, and the time to do the analysis that can be reduced using Turno. Because if you want to do some analysis and if you want to try out multiple things on your data, it might take you a lot of time to write the code and do all the analysis. But Turno AI can reduce that time. Can you demonstrate with an example? Yeah, we will demonstrate it. And what LLM model you recommend, or what's the best in your experience for use with Turno AI? So you can directly check it out how Turno AI works. So right now we are using OpenAI's model. So you will know the experience. You can directly use it there. Does it behave like AI agent? Yeah, it's a AI agent in itself. So, but it connects to multiple things. Okay, so yeah. Yeah. So me and rest of the team, yeah, we developed Turno AI. So for example, a hospital wanna store data where Turno AI stores data. Yeah. In that case, the hospital's data can be either in some format, right? It can be in the database or some files. So you can easily upload the files to our system and you will be able to analyze them. You just need to host a database somewhere. Either you host the database or you can use our desktop app also. In that case, your data will be on your computer only. So that data will be private to you. We take care of security everywhere. So we take care that your data is not leaked or none of the like security is compromised anywhere. It means it is leaning based on what we feed into it. Yes, like some parts will work on its own, but as you chat with it more, it will improve your the responses and will be able to answer more complex queries. It should not be exposed to OpenAI. That's the case. Hmm. So there are multiple things how we ensure that your actual data does not go to the LLM. Okay. So like we can change the we can obfuscate the data and change the names and change the skill like the actual only the schema is same, not your actual data. And there are multiple things there. We will go through that. Okay, so we actually ensure that the actual data is private to you. Our data, it's not for trained models. Not exactly. Like based on your interaction, we create some insights, and using those insights, we are able to answer your questions better. So no, not exactly. We don't train the LLM models using your data. How governance is handled? It's follow any compliant. Yeah, right now, yeah. Any guardrails in Turno AI? Mhm. Yeah, so in Turno AI, there are multiple guardrails. So you can only run select queries on it, only read queries. Okay. So we have a component called SQL Shield and TurnoDB. You can go through our website there. You will see them. For now, I'm just mentioning it that we have SQL Shield. It takes care of that you are only able to execute the select queries on your database, so that you can only read the database. You can never write on the database. And it is deterministic. It is not like LLM can write some queries and it is able to bypass. There is no way to bypass that. So in no way you will be able to write something to your database, actual database. You can only read it and do the analysis. Can you demo the product and then get into Q&A? Oh yeah, all right, sure. Yeah, I think we should go through the demo now, Valgiri.
Yeah. So with that, I would like to introduce Rishabh to everyone. Rishabh, can you please take over?
Yes, sure. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to present my project. So I'm Rishabh, as Vagdevi has introduced me, and I'm originally from India, but I've been staying in the Netherlands for the last 7 years. And professionally, I'm a scientist, and I'm working in medicine. We are working with pediatric cancer vaccine discovery. So I'm working with kids, basically. My background is completely in medicine. I'm a PhD in medicine, and I have experiences in government sectors and also private sectors. Before coming to the Netherlands, I also worked in the UK for some time. So I have extensive experience in medicine, and I'm also enthusiastic about AI and automation in medicine, which was also part of my PhD and also part of my recent job in the Netherlands. So that's how we got connected, and I took a course from CloudX Lab in collaboration with IIT Roorkee, and then I got an internship with Turno AI through the course. And this the project which I'm going to demonstrate today is actually a project which I did in the internship with Turno AI. And since I'm very enthusiastic about AI in life sciences or medicine, so I thought that the project should also be something related to healthcare, but showcasing the power of Turno and where Turno can solve real world issues. So I'll share my screen now, and I'll start the demonstration of the project. So is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So the project is basically to predict or to make a predictive model of patient attrition in clinical trials. Well, this is a lot of terms. I will explain one by one. So the main goal of the project is to basically make a predictive model to solve a problem which is happening in clinical trials. And we are doing it end to end with Turno AI. So I thought let's give a brief introduction about clinical trial for people who are not aware of it. So clinical trial, as per the FDA or the Food and Drug Administration in US, it's a research study which is done to test any kind of medicines or diagnostics or something which solves a health problem. So mostly we know clinical trials where medicines are tested. So it's basically, you can consider it as a roadmap or as a research workflow where new medicines or new pharmaceutical products are tested, and then after it passes this trial or this system of testing, it comes to the market. And there are many phases of this clinical trial. It starts in the laboratory where scientists like us, we are working with the medicines or the vaccines in my case. So we discovered them, we test them on animals and primates like monkeys and apes. And then after it passes the preclinical phase, it goes into the clinical trial. And it starts with phase 1, though some cases phase 0 is also considered, but we consider it phase 1, which is the first phase. And then it goes into the phase 2. After it passes the phase 1 on a small group of patients, it goes to phase 2, where we test the same product on a comparatively bigger group of patients, and we do many kind of safety analysis of this drug and the dosing of the drug, that how much this drug or medicine should be used in patients. And then it goes into phase 3, which is kind of a confirmatory phase, where after it passes the phase 3, the pharmaceutical product can already go into the market. So this is a quite important phase where pharmaceutical companies are looking at. And then after that, it goes into phase 4, and sometimes phase 5 is also considered, which are post-marketing surveillance. So after it enters the market, how the drug is performing. So phase 2, phase 3 is quite an alarming phase, and industries or researchers or drug developers, they look very closely into these phases. Now, what happens is, as you can understand from these phases, that patients or people are our fuel. So we really need people to test our products on, or the medicine on. So if we do not have certain amount of people, we cannot pass this phase, because these guidelines are also very strict, that we need this many people to pass the phase. Even one less person can really create a problem. And that is where the bottleneck is, that more than 30% of patients drop out at some stages. And this is a global problem. This is not an Indian problem or a country specific problem. This is a global problem where patients can drop out. And there is no such rule that you can bound a patient with a bond. It's always it's always open ended. You cannot force a patient to stay on the trial, because that is inhuman and beyond regulatory approvals. So patient dropping out, why it is a big problem? Because firstly, it delays the timeline. So project delays, our trial will be delayed, our goals will be missed, because if we need 100 patients and then after 2 days 3 patients walk out, so we have 97 patients, and that is as per the rules, that is not possible to do the trial. Then we have to either stop the trial or find new patients. And finding the patients is also a big problem, because we have regulations of what kind of patient we need, what kind of people we should look at, how many male, how many female, age group, many things are there. So that's a tedious problem. And if patients walk out, then definitely operational costs also increases. Budget, it's everything is budgeted, and then in a system, if it breaks, then definitely operational costs will increase. This creates a lot of statistical problem, because then we cannot rely on the data, because let's say if we do the trial on 97 patients instead of 100, then we have 3 less. So this is kind of a weak statistical analysis. Then we cannot conclude completely as per the rules that this drug is safe. And then comes the potential biased outcome, compromised integrity. So this is not a very approved way of trialing, because we had less patients. So the solution can we actually predict this kind of dropout before even it happens? Well, there has been some rules and some guidelines that people have been following, or trial managers have been following since 1970 to 1980. So this thought has been there already. And actually there are some set of guidelines which is called good clinical practices, or GCP. And these guidelines are very strict, very clear, that what kind of setups we need and what kind of patients we should consider before starting a trial. But still, we are not there. And the system is still very leaky. And there has been some suggestions on how to predict if a trial will be facing patient dropout. But those factors have been very manual, like missed visit tracking. So example, a patient is not coming to the trial for 2 days. So after 2 days, we start tracking that patient, what is happening. The clinical monitoring, let's say some incomplete forms. So before going into a trial, a patient has to fill all the details, whatever is asked for. So maybe the patient has not filled most of the details. So we consider, okay, this patient is not serious, but this might not be a important factor. Then we manually try to track those patients by phone calls, manual reminders. And then we also look into what has happened in the past. But our past is also but our past also has some leaky data, basically. So if we go, let's say, 10 years back, then the problem was the same 10 years back. So all the data are kind of same. So our predictions are also weaker. Then now Turno has, I think, has added a different dimension to this problem. So I'm very interested, coming from medicine, that if we can solve this problem in an AI based way, which is the trend right now. So we thought that why not we make a machine learning framework and we create a machine learning system where machines will learn patterns, and it will also learn, go much deeper into the data where human brain cannot go, or let's say by eye estimation we cannot go into those levels of data understanding. And then why not we evaluate these predictive models on real life data set, and then we try to make a predictive model for real world problem solving, like testing the model on real world clinical data. Now, what is the advantage of this approach is we are not making a new system. The system is there. We are just making a new approach which will be powering the existing system. So this is the concept of AI adoption, which is also on a trending discussion these days, that how AI can actually be adopted in the existing systems. So this is a classical example, I think, for that. And with this approach, we can make it adaptable, we can make it reliable, because our guidelines are strict, our guidelines are reliable, going for years. We can also make it scalable, because we will see that the data set is quite big, and Turno has done an excellent job, and it is repeatable as well. So the models that we make can be deployed in different, using different data sets. We will also look into that we train the model on one data set, but we can also translate our knowledge to other data sets. So what would be the workflow of Turno AI for this? Data is the fuel. So data ingestion and structuring will be needed. That is the phase part one. Then Turno will do some exploratory data analysis, which is extremely important. We have been doing manual data analysis using, let's say, Python codes or R codes, but how much can we think? Turno can think much better, and it can explore more patterns than a human brain can think of or a data analyst can think of. And then it also does the automated feature engineering, where it understands different patterns, different levels of complexities, and it creates some features out of it, which it uses to train the models. And it also suggests what kind of models can be trained. I will show that. And then we can go for the model selection based on a model evaluation, and we can also interpret what the model is predicting, and we can hopefully integrate this end to end in the existing system. So the data set which I have used over here is actually a real world data set. It's in the Med archive, so you can just go and download this paper, and also the data set is available on GitHub. So this data is sourced from AstraZeneca. I think everybody now knows about AstraZeneca after the COVID pandemic. So AstraZeneca did a huge um, um, study based on public data sets of which comprises of a lot of trials and lot of patients, and they made a they tried to make a machine learning system to predict trial attrition, or attrition means dropout of patients from the trials. Now, why this data set is interesting? Because it's very large. It's around more than 1,300 clinical trials it has considered, more than 3,000 cohorts of patients, and over 1 million patients, which is huge. And this the features are also very diverse. It has 79 clinical, demographic, treatment, adverse event variables. So this is not from one data set or one disease, but across many diseases. And it also includes a real world diversity. So it includes 20 years of multi-sponsor data, multi-disease clinical trial. Now, why multi-sponsor is important? Because if a project is sponsored by a company, then the company would definitely want it to be successful. So we have ruled out here, or actually they have ruled out here, the sponsor bias or over the data. And they have made this data very clean and ready to analyze on GitHub. So you can also download it on GitHub. Now, the exploratory data analysis, which Turno has done, I will show the chat as well. which is the second stage, the automated exploratory data analysis. So I will straight away go into the chat, how Torno actually works. So this is the chat summary. The Torno dashboard, it looks like this, where you have the LLM credits and you can create different projects for it, as Vagdevi and Sandeep has demonstrated. I will go straight into the chat. Since I am not an AI expert, I come from a different background, so my way of prompting is also very different. So I spoke like a normal person, that you are a AI data scientist working on clinical trial analytics. I gave Turner an objective. So this is exactly how you prompt ChatGPT. This is exactly similar. So I told it to build a predictive model because I have understanding of the data. So I know that what I want. And poor adherence, in this case, I mentioned a disease, but you can also mention that you want it on the whole data set and whatever it is. And if this disease is not there, then Torno will show whatever is there in the data and what the data actually speaks. So in this case, diabetes mellitus was not in the data, so it showed the overall data distribution. I also told it that the dataset contains structured clinical trial, including patient demographics and everything. And then I also gave it some tasks, like how to understand the data. I told it to summarize the data structure. So it will not stop only at one disease, but it will go, if that disease is not there, then it will show whatever is there in the data. It will do an holistic exploratory analysis. It will identify the missing values and inconsistencies, which is important because missing values can create a lot of differences. And it will also detect class imbalance and all this stuff. Now, here, while Torno is thinking, so I also attached the data set, which I downloaded from GitHub. You can also connect databases, external databases, as already demonstrated, and Torno can connect to those databases, but you can also upload the data set directly to Torno, and everything is quite safe. So it shows that Torno is thinking. That means Torno is processing the data, it's processing the prompt, and it shows the steps, what Torno is following. And here, the cool part is we can also get the code, and we can copy this code, and we can also run it. Or we can go directly down where Torno gives an answer, and it shows our data set. It does the EDA or whatever we ask to do it. And this data set contains 3175 rows, 84 columns. I have matched it with the data set. It's perfectly right. And it also talks about all the dropout labels. So this data is already processed to some extent. So there is already some labels, like basic labels, but we need more features to understand anyway. So it understood the labels, which is already there in the data set, like the DWP is dropout. So the people who have curated this data, they have already made these labels, that what is the percentage of dropout rate and subject-wise dropout or overall dropout, all these kind of metrics. And then Torno makes some visualizations. So Torno made a lot of visualizations, but for reporting this as a research report, which I needed to make for my internship, I chose which visualization I need, and I will show you that. But Torno has actually made a lot of visualizations, which is super cool. So it gives you like a window of options to choose from. I will go back to my presentation. So Torno showed that most of the data is from phase 3 and phase 2, and a little bit of data is from phase 4, which makes sense to the real world case as well, because phase 2 and phase 3 are very monitored. Phase 4 is kind of a post-marketing surveillance, and phase 2 and phase 3 are more important, as I've already told. It showed that most of the projects are sponsored, very less are not sponsored, and very less are collaborative, which also makes sense because clinical trial is extremely economically draining for any kind of organization, and you need a sponsor for that. So most of the projects will be sponsored. So these are kind of correct, and this is also kind of a quality check that if Torno is working fine, and it is actually working fine. Now, what has actually happened here? So here we see in the first slide that we have a different phases, like number of entries, for example, phase 3, phase 2, and phase 4. So this is already kind of an imbalanced data. Now Torno, based on the data labels that is already present in the data set, it tried to make a mean dropout rate from all those trials. So it tried to understand that how many trials are showing as a dropout, or how many trials are showing at a risk of getting dropout. But then we have different amount of data for different phases. Then how can we conclude something? Because if some phase has more data, then definitely a dropout will be more from that, and that doesn't conclude anything. So what Turno did, it made a average of the dropout rate or the dropout level based on the dropout percentage, which is dropout all in the data set already mentioned. And this kind of shows you average picture or a trend line, let's say, in the data. Then additionally, it also tried to see if it has any correlation between the patient age who is in the trial and the dropout rate. So here you can see that already at the exploratory phase, Turno is thinking about the data. This is not only a data, but it's a thought from the system itself that what is happening. And this is exactly how we deal with with any data, the scientists, that we try to find pattern that if we can try to find an answer to the problem upfront. So Torno is actually doing the same thing. It's looking into all the factors that a real scientist or a real trial manager would do. That let's look into the age, let's look into the average of the score and all those things, which is really cool. Now, based on the dropout percentages, it also made kind of a scoring system that to see what is the distribution. So how many are at higher dropout risk, which is at 1, and how many are lower dropout risks. So for most of the trials, it showed to be at higher dropout risk, which also made sense because if you look into the data, you will see that most of the trials are either still recruiting patients or they are not completed yet. Now, what has happened over here, 0, which is no risk of attrition. So Torno is saying that from the data, we can understand trials which are already completed, that is at no risk for sure because it's already done. But trials which is still ongoing or yet to start, Torno is considering those as high risk, which makes sense because we don't know the future of these trials. So it is actually showing you which are the trials you should look at, which is kind of a good analysis upfront at the data that we know where to look at. So then what I asked Turno is to make a correlation heat map. And I asked Turno that correlate all the factors which are interrelated in the heat map as a heat map.
Rishabh, so there
Yes,
are some questions related to medical domain. Can you just answer them? Because they might be related to your current discussion.
I cannot see the questions
Yeah,
here. So,
here.
sorry, I missed a lot of questions. Can you?
You can
Whether
start from here itself, I guess. Whether usually. Yeah.
Okay, whether usually clinical trials are introduced to say rats then humans for trial. Well, it depends on what kind of trial you want to do. For example, there has been a lot of discussion about the COVID vaccine that has been made. Well, during my PhD, I was working very closely with the group who made the Johnson vaccine. So I know some people there, and so trials are actually done for a long time. It's not like, okay, we have a problem and this is a drug. No, COVID vaccine was under research for a very long time, and a lot of research has been done. Rats or dog or mice, we choose it based on the drug that we are testing, the disease that we are testing. Because why trial is done, because we want to test the medicine in the most real environment possible. And we cannot just say, okay, we have a drug and we let's put it in the human beings, because but we don't know what will happen to that human being. So we need some smaller animals who are the best representatives of the human physiologically. So based on that, we need to understand which animals are good for this kind of a product. For example, the COVID vaccine, which I've been mentioning, there we chose mice. Mice model is kind of widely accepted, and many respiratory products are tested on mice. But you can also test it on primates, for example, monkeys or apes. Um, I did not. I think that group also did that probably on a broader scale, but I don't know in details. So it depends on the product and your goal. So after all phases, whether one can file patent for 1 year to boost profit. Yeah, profit comes at a much later stage, because for profit you need market penetration, you need to deploy that product, you need to sell it. Patenting, yes, patenting happens at a much earlier stage as well. You can patent the process how you made the drug, or you can patent the product how you made the drug. I'm not a patent expert, but this is something which I know. You can look into the patent rules, I think. But yeah, phases are mostly for marketing. So patenting comes much before. Are these patients incentivized? Yes. So many of the trials, or most of the trials, you can get free accommodation. You can also get free. You will get free food, and monitored health checkups, and money. So in many low economic countries, this is quite a lucrative way to earn money as well. In some cases we have seen, I will also show in my analysis, where we are considering GDP for making this prediction. Forecasting models, clustering models times models to train, weather classification, forecasting, regression, clustering. This will also depend on your research question, right? What you want to look at. If you want to classify yes or no, then definitely we have classification models. But if you want to classify yes or no based on very complex parameters, then you have special models, which I will show here. Time series, yes, if you want to look at how a drug is or how a medicine is behaving in your body over time, and you want to predict where it can go after, let's say, 5 years, what would be the consequence of this medicine in the body. Definitely it can be, it is possible. A very classical example is sildenafil. So sildenafil was introduced as a heart medicine, but later it was found that it is curing erectile dysfunction in human beings, and this product was completely changed into a different product. So had there been a time series model, or had there been a predictive model, we would have predicted that this adverse effect can also happen, which can become a new definition of the drug. So time series models are used. Neural networks are also used in image classification, deep learning. We use for diagnosis mostly. MRIs are automated these days, I think, with the neural networks. Um, can it still handle unstructured data? Yes, it can. It can handle unstructured data. I have tested Turno in many other projects where data is completely unstructured. It helps unstructuring. It also helped me merge two data sets into a bigger data set. It also helped me in that. What's the temperature it's set on to process? I didn't understand this question.
Yeah, yeah. So the temperature is zero for that right now, for the LLM model. Yeah,
Oh, it's for the model. Okay,
so
I'm
that it
thinking
can
from.
answer the question in the same way if you reprompt it, and
Okay.
we can maintain the accuracy of the answer.
Mhm. Okay, so can we augment data if there is imbalance? How much percent of augmentation is allowed? Yes, and most of the clinical or pharmaceutical data is imbalanced. You cannot get a balanced pharmaceutical data. At least I haven't seen any. So there is always some imbalance, and how much, what percentage, it depends. So, for example, if something has happened or not happened, if a patient has arrived to the trial or not, this is a very concrete answer, either yes or no. We cannot impute the data in that. So I'm not an, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in that, but what I understood is imputation, right? With augmentation, like to define the class, is something that you're trying to indicate. I did not understand this part actually.
Yeah, I guess in if you're talking about augmenting the data for the machine learning models, then in that case, Turno will handle it by itself while it is writing the code. So it writes the code, so it will handle this part by itself.
Okay. Okay.
Or you can also prompt it to do that. Then it will definitely do it.
Yeah, I mean, class imbalance, it handles very well. That I have already shown in my EDA, which Turno did. So I can go back to my presentation. Is my presentation visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I will also show the correlation heat map in details, but so Turno made a correlation heat map with all the interrelated variables, which can be useful to predict patient attrition in a predictive model. So at a higher level, if we look at, there are so many factors which Turno has considered from the data set. So traditionally, we only considered 4 factors. And within these 4 factors, there is maximum of 4 to 5 sub factors. So in total, we used to consider maybe 15 to 20 parameters to predict um, attrition rate. But now with Turno, you can combine all these, and you can make a permutation combination that how much um, factors are there, or how many interrelated variables are there, and at a very deeper level, which will be used to understand or look at the data and make a predictive modeling, which is very powerful. So what we derive from the EDA on a higher end is dropout is driven by multiple tolerability factors. So there can be multiple factors why a patient is dropping out. And trial design is influenced definitely by many factors, but duration and phase are very important. I will show how this is important. And then demographics, or where the trial is happening, where the patients are coming from, it affects the retention, but less significantly. And then structural data alone is insufficient without patient experience. So initially we did not look at how the patient is feeling. We never took into account very concretely that during the trial, if a patient is facing what kind of adverse effects, or definitely we took into account, but that can be a very important parameter why patient drops out during the trial. So here you can see that all these AEs, which are adverse effects, are all the complaints that the patient is doing. I will show the correlation heat map which Turno has made. So Turno has actually made a downloadable version of this, which you can download and you can also save as PNG. And this is an interactive map. So if I place the cursor on the map, it will show the correlation between those factors in that particular square. So more blue, that means more correlated. More red means less correlated. So if I go into, let's say, this. So tier 2 and tier 3, they are 0.03 correlation, which is not very acceptable. But let's say if we go into more blue squares over here, so let's say this one, dropout all with the dropout subject, which is very correlated. So dropout all means the scoring which the data set already has, which takes into account all the factors of why a patient should drop out. And subject wise dropout is individual parameter, why a particular patient is dropping out. So they are quite correlated. Let's say if we go into this part, fatigue plus thrombocytopenia. So fatigue means where the patient is getting fatigued, it's like low energy, and this is an adverse effect. Thrombocytopenia is also another adverse effect. So these are very correlated. Now why this is important? Because a patient is complaining about fatigue or thrombocytopenia, we can see. Then if the drug is a blood product, and thrombocytopenia is a blood related problem, and fatigue can also happen blood related problem. So this can be alarming. That means our drug might have an adverse effect. So this kind of analysis not only gives you an insight into the patient dropout, but also gives you some insight into how you should look at your product. And then, for example, nausea and total seriousness. So for example, nausea is when a patient is complaining about vomiting, interest of vomiting. So the patient wants to vomit. This is a correlated problem. And it is very much correlated with the total serious adverse effect. So all the adverse effects which is reported, this is quite correlated with nausea. And nausea is quite common. Even with normal antacid, sometimes people feel nauseous. Or nausea can also happen because of many other parameters which might not be related to your drug. So what I want to say from this correlation matrix is this gives us when should we actually look into the patient's complaints, and when we should kind of ignore the patient's complaints, because nausea can happen, maybe the patient has not eaten well, or the patient was not treated well. So it can be due to a serious effect or also not a serious effect. So this gives us a holistic idea of what to look at and when to look at and how to look at. And imagine if you have one product, one kind of disease, then this becomes more easily interpretable and more informative But now we are dealing with multiple diseases, multiple products. So this is more a holistic way to look at. Taste. Taste is also very important. Let's say constipation and taste. So some products can create constipation and they are not very good to eat. So patient does not want to eat the taste. So maybe we can also think about how to improve the taste of the product. So you can see everything is connected towards marketing of the product as well, not only the trial, that whether this product will be accepted if it's marketed. So now with this, we have more better understanding of the problem than the traditional approaches, completely a different horizon. Now, the main goal is to, or let's say the next curiosity is, do we have a pattern in this system? If we can understand why patients are actually dropping out, and if there is a pattern that we can identify beyond human capability. So Turno can actually transform the raw clinical data into model-ready features. So it can understand the features, then it can do some encoding, it can do aggregation and feature combinations. And as mentioned, you can do everything at your own machine, and your data is completely safe. So what Turno does, it can standardize the categorical encodings. It can consider the interaction features, for example, age and treatment duration for this time, because longer the treatment duration, more the attrition rate. This is already known. It also understands the demographic composition ratios, for example, age distribution, gender balance, male-female preferences, subgroups. For example, if a person is from a particular age group and from a particular gender, if that particular gender or age group is more prone to drop out. Then we have the trial complexity, the duration phase, and then the scoring. So after this, I asked Turno to train models, or also to suggest me what kind of models I need to train. So Turno made a training setup where it used supervised learning using labeled clinical data dropout. So these labels or these features were also made by Turno. And Turno split the data into 80-20 percentage, so 80% for training and 20% for testing. And Turno itself suggested me to train that it can train logistic regression, random forest, and XGBoost for me. So I already know what models I want, but I wanted to see if Turno can suggest me. So I will show you the chat. And well, these chats are also shareable. So you can share the whole chat and you can curate it for later reference. So Turno made all the models. I will show you. So this is not the chat. Yeah. And then I asked it that, can you predict the dropout rate from this trial data set? I want to know who has the higher chances of dropout. And I told Turno to make visualizations and also add a column in the data set with a risk scoring. And I wanted to narrow down the risk scoring from a lot of numbers to 0 to 5. So Turno trained the models based on the features, and it also gave me the models. So you can save the model in joblib format or .pkl format, and it can be saved in this kind of folders in the Turno dashboard itself. And this stays as long as you have the account. This stays, and you can go into this and you can see all the visualizations, or if the model is saved somewhere, and all the Excel sheets as well. So what Turno did is Turno made a risk scoring out of these trained models. And the risk scoring, I told Turno to make it 0 to 5. So 5 means high risk score, where trials who are getting 5 is at the most risk of getting patient attrition, and 0 means who are safe and there is no problem. But choose the best one and make results prediction based on that. Then I also told Turno that you choose the best model. So you compare the model, show me all the visualizations, and I want to understand which model is working better so that I can choose the next statistical step. So Turno did that. And Turno made the 3 models. And I told Turno that I want to look at the performance of the models based on the evaluation data set that you made. And I want to look at compare the true positive and the false positive rate. That which model can understand how much of positive rates. Why I chose this? Because for clinical trial, false positive is also a big problem. So how much false positive is there? So if a model can predict that or really understand those values or those predictions, then it is a good model for us. So here you can see that random forest which is a classification model. So it performed the best, and followed by XGBoost, and then followed by logistic regression. So XGBoost is kind of at the middle of prediction or prediction power. Now, how this risk scoring is actually done, or how the models actually risk scored or calculated the risk score. It is done in a quite intelligent way, I must say. So as I told, that the patient data or the patient parameters are taken into consideration, which are the features, and then Torno also identified many other features in the data, and it trained 3 models for us. And then based on those, it also considered something which is called readmission. Now, readmission is a very important concept, and it's also a kind of factor in clinical trial. Let's say a trial is going on, and the patient says, "I don't want to continue anymore," and the patient goes off. But the patient can also come back after some time, and this can happen. Maybe the patient was mistreated, maybe the treatment was not done properly, or the patient was having a lot of adverse effect. There has been complaints, but nobody cared, so the patient discontinued. But after some time, due to some reason, the patient can also come back. And this is a problem, because if we accept that patient and we continue the trial, then we don't know what happened while the patient was not there. And also, if the patient drops out, then this is kind of a false positive, because our model would say that that this trial is at risk, but the patient is coming back after 30 days. So from the data, the model also tried to understand that what is this readmission rate or readmission factors, and taken into consideration, it scored, it made a probability. It basically made a probability of dropout of the clinical trial. And if you multiply that probability with 100, you get a score, which the model is categorizing with between 0 to 5. So let's say the low risk is 0 to 2. Here I'm showing a bigger number, like a representative image. But our main scale is 0 to 5. So let's say a low risk is 0 to 2, then 2 to 3 is medium risk, and 4 to 5 is high risk. One thing to say, that this is not like a verdict. If the model is saying that particular trial is at risk, that doesn't mean that it is 200% at risk. It is just an alarm that you should look at that trial, you should investigate further, because it might fail due to dropout risk. So this is like an alarm system. Now, what's next? Now, we have 3 models. We know which model is performing how, but we want to see which is the best model from all aspects, not from only performance. So we finalized a model. For that, we did a Spearman correlation analysis. It's a statistical analysis done by Torno. So Torno gave me some numbers, which I plotted it myself, but Torno can also plot it based on if you ask it. And based on this Spearman correlation, which Torno did, Torno made a correlation between the trial variables, all the trial variables which we have spoken so far, with the dropout risk, because the dropout risk score is the representation of all the factors. So we want to see which model can actually make the best correlation. And in this case, XGBoost came out to be the best. The reason is XGBoost is a tree-based model. So it has different layers of it, and it can learn from the mistake made by one layer, and it can correct itself. Random forest is a classifier. It's very good, but XGBoost outperforms it in many complex scenarios, and it can better handle the class imbalance, and it also shows the strongest generalization. So it becomes more reliable from a clinical perspective. Now we come to the final part, which is model interpretation. The question is, okay, we have trained the model, we have tested the model, but training and testing was done on the same kind of data. we 80% use we use 80% of the data to train the model, 20% to test, but the source is the same. So as a clinical person, why would I believe that this model is deployable across other scenarios where other data sets are there? Because clinical data, pharmaceutical data is very varied across industry, across cases. So I wanted to see if these models can also perform on an external data set. So evaluate if the model actually works. So I will open the chat and then I will start my presentation. Okay. So what I actually did is I wanted to make a confusion matrix. Now, confusion matrix is a way to test if our models are working. So we use a data set where we have, let's say, actual data or true positives, let's say 100 yes and 100 no. This is actually in the data set. Now I asked the model to predict how many yes or no can you predict. So maybe the model predicts 30 yes out of 100 and 70 yes as no. So that means we have a predicted score, we have an actual score, and we match it that how much of the predicted score is matching the actual score. And this way we make a matrix. So for our case, we made a matrix. We wanted to make a matrix like this. So we will put the predicted score 0 to 5 and the actual score 0 to 5. And we will see how many fives can our model identify in the data set as 5, and how many fives it identifies in the data set as 1. So this will give us an idea about the model performance. And as I mentioned, this 0 to 5 is the risk score. 0 is very low, 1 to 3 is kind of moderate, low to moderate, and then we have high risk and very high risk at 4 to 5. So we used a public a public data set which is available in Kaggle. So from Kaggle, which is a website, you can go and you can download this particular data set and you can look into the data. And then I asked Torno in the chat that you make the confusion matrix for all the 3 models to show the efficiency of prediction across all the models. So you can see my prompts are not very sophisticated. It's more like I'm talking to a system, which and Torno can understand it. So I uploaded all the models and the trial data which I got from Kaggle, and then Torno again showed the thinking. So you can also get the thought, what it is doing, and you can see the code execution, what code it executed, and then it gave us a final answer. And here you can see the numbers, but it also made the visualizations, which I'm going to show. So for each model, it made the visualization and the prediction, logistic regression, random forest, and XGBoost. And it also made the charts, and it also shows where it has saved the figures or the visualizations as PNG. So now we started looking at the confusion matrices, and we saw that all the trials are considered to be as low risk, which cannot be, because I know that in the data set there is a distribution of high risk and low risk trials. So for logistic regression, it failed. Random forest also same, and XGBoost also same. Now, I was curious that if the model was trained wrong or if there is some other kind of problem. Well, then I looked into the data and I saw that there is a featured inconsistency. Then I also uploaded the data to Torno and I asked if this is a good data set. So what it said that it is a good data set, but it has featured inconsistency, which matches my observation. And that is why the confusion matrices are showing misclassification, because this data is an external data set. This is not what the model has seen before. Now, what actually broke the system, if we go deeper into that there is encoding inconsistency. So we have one training data set and we have an external data set. So what is a risk level 2 in the training data set can be a risk level 4 in the external data set. We don't know that. Population distribution, there can be distribution in the training and the external data set. Age distribution can be different. Disease variability can be different. Adverse effects can be different, which is across the data. And then trial design can also be different. Now, class distribution shift was also there. Training has a different class. External data set has a different class, which I told that moderate risk, what it means for the training data set might not be for the external data set. Then target binning mismatch. So if all these are so inconsistent, our scoring will also be inconsistent. And then the feature engineering inconsistency automatically comes into play. Now, since I'm not a data scientist would already think about this, but I was quite foolish that I did not think about it. So what I did, I asked Turner to fix it, and Turno fixed the process. So Turno optimized the whole strategy. So what it did, it made a unified pre-processing pipeline. It did not forget the whole training. It used the external validation dataset as well as the original AstraZeneca dataset, and it kind of tried to unify the process. Then it kind of tried to synchronize the feature engineering. So it because the features were almost same, only the levels were different, and number of columns were a bit no number of columns was same, but the feature consistency was a bit different. So it kind of tried to synchronize them. Then it also told me where is the difference in the chats. I think if we go deeper, we can see that it tried to make the predictions many times. Because I did not understand what was the problem. Then I asked it, is this data appropriate to test the model evaluation based on how the models have been trained? So it says appears to be appropriate for model evaluation based on the following. So why it thinks that the data is appropriate. And then it also tells me, would you like to proceed with model evaluation and confusion matrix visualization using this data set? So I told it yes. And then it tried to make more predictions, but the feature problem was already there. So then this fixing part came. So it did all those optimizations, and it kind of tried to harmonize the risk scoring across the data set so that the models can be retrained, and it retrained the model based on a harmonized data structuring. And then it showed me the performance. So after Torno standardized and synchronized the feature engineering across the data sets, you can see that there is a huge difference in the models. So it trained the same model, and this is the initial accuracy, which is blue, and post optimization accuracy is in orange. And you can see that XGBoost actually outperforms. So one thing which is really cool, that upfront, even when I was at the training state or evaluation stage with the original dataset, Torno already told me XGBoost is better to go forward. But still there was a confusion. Now, when we evaluate it on an external dataset, you can see that actually XGBoost outperforms. So Torno was very good in judging which model can be better for your research question, even if there are other models who is performing better at a validation or at a training level. So Torno can really look into the holistic or the comprehensiveness of the project. Now predictions are much better. So this is from logistic regression. So it considers number 4, which is it predicts number 4, which is actually number 5 over here. But still there is a lot of trials which are number 5, but it's considering number 3, 2, and 1. Same for random forest. And but for XGBoost, scenarios are much different. What it predicts as number 3 is actually number 4, and most of them are actually in the one prediction. So here most of the data is actually correlating to the actual data set. There will be outliers because these models are models, so definitely there will be some differences. Nothing can be 100%, but this is very promising already. But with more engineering and more training, I think we can make it even better. But then I was interested to see why these 3 models are different, because the training data set was same, evaluation is the same, external data set is same, harmonization has been done. Then why they are still different? Because they are considering different factors. So each model is different because they are considering different factors. For this, I did a SHAP analysis. I mean, Turno did a SHAP analysis, and it gave me this image, which is from Turno. And here you can see that XGBoost, which is our star model, is considering many such parameters which other models are not considering. And then I was a bit curious to see, because AstraZeneca also made a model which they have actually published. So what factors are they considering? Then I went into the paper, and I saw that they actually selected these factors: duration of the trial, You can see here duration of the trial. In total number of trials, it is considering as number one, because if there are more trials, there will be more dropout. Then GDP weight, it is also here. So if we have to look into what kind of economic background the patient is coming from a low background or a high background, from a first world country or a third world country. Then the adverse effect for the total number of adverse effects, it is also considering that at some point. I think AE thrombosis, it's considering different way anyway. So GDP is there, age mean is there, age is also there, age mean is there. So the XGBoost, which XGBoost model, which Turner trained, actually matches the published data, published model, and it also works on external data set, which is really cool, and we can translate it into other data sets as well. So I would like to conclude or go towards the conclusion. The key insights that we found from this project is no single variable dominates risk prediction. Then trial duration really dictates how much dropout can happen. And adverse event burden or adverse uh, scenarios should be taken into account, what the patient is complaining. Then the treatment duration and the exposure. If longer the treatment or painful the treatment, there might be higher dropout. And then age and demographic composition also have some moderate effect on the patient dropout. And then interaction effects, for example, duration and the adverse events, how much they are correlated, can be taken into account, which XGBoost takes into account. And with this, I also have a take-home message, because while using this, I realized that AI is a tool, and definitely it can do wonders, but we need proper strategy to make it more impactful. We cannot just make it like treat it as a video game. No, it is not. It's a very powerful tool, but we need a proper strategy, a proper question that we want to solve. And people are talking that whether AI will replace humans. I don't think so, because we are kind of using it as a tool. So innovation is there, AI is the innovation, but we have to see how we can implement this and we can adopt it in our existing systems, so that we can power the existing system and we can make the world much more powerful, like we can do everything data driven way, so that outcomes are more predicted and outcomes are more in control. So we have the innovation. Now we have to look into implementation. And I feel that I have given you a classical example of how we can implement AI in one of the most important pillars of the society, which is healthcare. With this, I would like to conclude, and I would be happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Um, Hi, Rishabh. It was a very wonderful session. Yeah,
Thank you.
feel free to take the questions and then we'll conclude. There is, there are, I think, three questions. Arthur's, okay. There is one question from Shreya. Is clinical trial phase 2 and phase 3 show it shows similar attrition rate? Is it so? That is the question. In
It
clinic,
depends.
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry. No, please continue. I'm sorry. I just started.
Yeah. Basically, I was repeating the question. If that is clear, then you can go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, phase 2 and phase 3, they are not the same, but definitely they have different importances. It depends actually. That is hard to say, but phase 3 is very important, because after phase 3, the drug can actually come to the market. So pharmaceutical companies are more concerned about phase 3, because there they don't want to miss it. And by phase 3, they have already invested a lot of money. From phase 2, maybe the process is still recoverable, but phase 3 is kind of like the final day of your exam. You don't want to miss that step. So phase 3 is more important from that aspect, but phase 2 is kind of where the alarm already starts, so we should look at it. So it has its individual importances, I must say. Any more
That
questions?
was, yeah. Can I use in my app? I'm making a simple app for doctors. What kind of data I use for the medical purpose? Um, okay. So I'll answer the first part. So yes, we are making quite a few things publicly available. The DBI is available, and other components are available. So you can definitely use it. Use the DBI in your app, and right. And we are also making Turno's API available so that you can connect it there. What kind of data I use for medical purposes? So I would say that for medical purposes, you can look for the public data set. So Rishabh, you use a public data set only, right?
Yes. So I went into the Med archive and then I downloaded this. This is a paper actually, which is under review right now. So they
Okay.
have the data sets available. But for my other projects, which I'm doing for Turno, I also refer to the US government data sets like the CMS government. You can also get synthetic data sets, which is in the government repository, I think, for practice. So there are many databases.
Right, right, right. There is a question from Mohit. I would like to answer that. That's a very important question. Thank you. Thank you. I think Rishabh, that was good. One of the question from Mohit is that as AI is evolving and AI is able to derive new molecules and proteins, will be will there be a need for clinical trials in future, specifically on humans, because it's very expensive process? What is your take? How is industry thinking? So I work with it's a very good question, Mohit, first of all. So very, very important question. And I work for with multiple teams which do the clinical trial and do the data gathering and do the things. And yes, basically there are two sides of the story. One, molecular level inventions. Other is, after the clinical trials, we observe the data set, right? We observe which drug is performing. Both the things are part of the same, these are two ways of solving, right? When you are manufacturing drugs, earlier manufacturing was based on general studies, but now that is happening from the molecular. But when you're done with manufacturing, when manufacturing the drug, you will have to do the clinical trials. There is no way you can just rely on the theoretical foundation. So you will develop, let's say, multiple molecules. You will do clinical trials, observe it, and only then you put it into production. Whether it's a vaccine, whether it's any molecule that you're developing. So now the good part is that the clinical trials, all the data gathering has become very automated. Like tools like Turno are being used in clinical trials that you given the patient's data, convert that to a structured data, for example. That kind of work is done using Turno, and it's pretty good. All right. So I think it's not this or that. It'll be both. Okay. And in both, AI and machine learning is being used. A question from Shreya. My question was the highest rate of attrition do occur. Yeah, Rishabh, it's I think a follow up to your answer. Her question was the highest rate of attrition do occur at phase two, and the PPT shows similar rates. So I just want to ask, is it based on specific data you provided, Turno, or is it on all the studies done on the similar objective?
Uh, So to answer this question, I think the figure you are referring to is where Turner took the mean dropout rate. So that is from the data set itself. So this is a particular data set thing. If you use other data sets, maybe you will see a different trend. But in this data set, if I can share the screen again, and I can show you the raw data. So if my screen is visible, this is what the trial counts were. So phase 3 has more entries and phase 2 has less entries. So it also depends on how many entries are there. So if in a phase you have less entries, then you cannot say that. I mean, it's hard to say if how to say like the dropout rate. So it's data specific. This was a scenario in this particular data set, but maybe if I work with other data sets, it will be different.
Wonderful. Wonderful. There is a question to us from Gopal. Question is whether Turno.ai is HIPAA compliant, which is mandatory for healthcare. Good point. So basically, HIPAA compliance is essentially a overall framework, right? So, and that overall framework includes the training of all the vendors, training of individuals, training of healthcare providers, and so on and so forth. So, yes, from that perspective, Suterno basically, right, Turno doesn't really keep any data with itself, and it basically keeps all the data in your organization. And therefore, Turno is aiding in organization staying HIPAA compliant, right? And second is that for various kind of compliance, you can ask Turno to structure the permissions, the data governance rules to make your organization HIPAA compliant. That's a kind of a very interesting feature of Turno, that you can say that here is my database, here are my databases, come up and let's say you have 10 databases, you can say that based on all of our databases and based on the industry we are in, what are the compliance needed for us? And uh, can you suggest those changes, like, or and can you do the changes needed to be compliant? So there are many kind of compliances around. So what Turno does is it goes through the data, it reducts the PIA information, the personally identifiable information, PII information, not PIA, but personally identified information, and as well as make it HIPAA compliant. So it's much more than that. I would say that to become an organization compliant to various kinds of standards, you can use Turno. All right. Wonderful question. Any other question? There is one question from Ankita. Question is, how is patient privacy protected while training AI models on medical data? That's a good question and it's a hard question. So the way most of our clients do is when they are, I think, like some of my teammates are working with the very large pharma company and they are using Turno. The way they are doing is that they connected the Turno to their data sources, which are dummy data sets, but they have the same architecture as the production. So Turno develops the module, develops the SQL, develops the Python code, and then they run that Python code or things on a live data. So Turno doesn't have access to any of their confidential information, and still Turno is able to perform everything. I hope that answers your question. A question from Mohit is, what is the meaning of Turno? So Turno has a full form that I'll share sometimes, but for now you can just think of it as a yeah, single word. All right. Thank you, Jeshra. A question from Rohit is, if you can answer how much percentage of healthcare industry has adopted AI ML tech in diagnostic and new drugs inventions? Uh, to my surprise, based on my last 3 years of experience working with the healthcare, I'm actually impressed that many companies are way ahead of their time. Okay. They are working a lot and they're working day in, day out. Then there are so many different dimensions that you can't imagine. Even in the clinical trial, there are hundreds of different formats. There are all sorts of translation of data and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed that the companies have embraced embraced AI ML as their primary leverage in the market. All right. Question from Shreya is, how is it different from meta-analysis? I'm not sure. Do you mean the metadata analysis, or is it some tool that you're talking about, Shreya? Metadata analysis, yes. So Turno can do the metadata analysis. Yeah. So, okay, you mean to say the example that I gave when people are using Turno for on dummy data? Yes. So that some of the people, in order to protect the privacy of the data, what they do is they use only the metadata to build those models, and then to build the systems, and then use that model on the production data. But a better way is you generate or create dummy data that gives better results, because the agentic system need to probe and go and back and forth, and it need to make sure the hypothesis it has come up with is correct or not. Therefore, metadata analysis along with dummy data actually solves a lot of problems in industry. A question from Yashi is one last question. How is data protected? So it's up to you how you want to protect the data. So we have a layer called Turno DBI. That DBI sits in front of your data, and you can control and configure the DBI so that AI or a particular user can access only the things that you wanted them to. All right. So our primary leverage is the DBI, one of the key leverage that we basically have made open source. Yeah. A question from Kalyan: How Turno AI can predict the risk percentage of cancer patient? It can build the models, right? It can build the model, it can train on the data and do the work. It won't hallucinate. Instead, it will look at the data, build the model, and do that. Right. Rishu, do you want to add anything to Kalyan's question?
Yes, I
How?
can add. So because most of the data that we had over here was from cancer patients in the data set that you can look. So what Turno did, Turno not only took the duration of the trial, it also took many other parameters in the trial, and then based on that, it made some features out of it, which it used to train the models. And then, as I mentioned, that in my risk scoring calculation, that it made a probability of what is the dropout percentage that was already mentioned in the data, and based on that, what are the factors which is contributing to that percentage, and on that it made a probability distribution, that how what is the probability that this trial will face a patient attrition. And that probability, if you multiply by 100, gives you a score, gives you a number. And then additional to that, Torno took that number and placed it in our scale, which I told, from 0 to 5, that where is this number located. So that is how it makes the risk score. So if you want it only for cancer, then Torno can also filter out the data, because I tried it, that it filters out the data on specific disease, and you can also work it on specific disease. But I trained it for overall. I think that
Perfect.
answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you, everyone. Vagdevi, over to you. You, right? Gajendra. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rishabh. This was a very insightful demonstration. I really appreciate that. And
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for joining. So, everyone, we have also given the link where you can sign up to Turno. So, you will get an initial credit of $10 for free. You can definitely try out with your own data sets, or you can connect to your data sources. And as we have seen, it is absolutely free of security concerns. It is, you can you don't need to fear that your data is getting leaked to anywhere. Or with that, we would like to close the session. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you, Rishabh. Thank you,
Thank you.
Vagdevi. Thank you, Kode. Thank you, Gajendra.
Thank
And
you.
wonderful set of questions from everyone. I really loved the questions, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.